Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and the 1984 Kevin Bacon Footloose film. All right, and yeah, and basically, I just watched this movie and I was astounded. And I wanted to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in context to understanding the 1984 Footloose and why the 1984 Footloose, a movie that is literally 44 decades in our past, really explains the future of Dungeons and Dragons. So let's jump into it. So first of all, the reason why I watched this movie was about 3 to 6 months ago. Footloose came up, the song played, and I was like, you know what? I want to watch that movie again, right? And so I went to watch it, and like many properties today, I went to Footloose Just Watch. Just Watch is it's the best resource online I've found for telling where you can watch a thing on the subscriptions you have, right? And so I went over to Just Watch for Footloose, and it was like, this isn't free anywhere. You have to rent it right now. And I was like, oh man. And so I didn't watch it. I didn't rent it. I was like, hey, you got 4 streamers. You ain't got no business renting a movie when you got 4 streamers with content you ain't watched on it, and you do, right? So I skipped it, right? Well, the song came up again, and I was like, it's been 6 months. I'm going to check. And sure enough, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a cork that popped, man. And everything is on Netflix again. Everybody's selling to Netflix, and Netflix is buying everything. I literally think they went out and got like another $1 billion in funding and just bought everything from everybody, because everybody's poor right now. We are in one of the worst financial downturns. I really believe we're in a recession. Like we're in an American recession, in my humble opinion. Right? I think it's super clear. All right. So, so Footloose comes. So I realized 1984 Footloose is on Netflix. So I watch it. I learned a few things. One, I've never seen this film. I never saw. And I was like, and that's important. So let's talk about that. Why is it important that I never saw Footloose and now I've seen Footloose? I watched the whole movie in 2024. So first of all, it makes sense that I never saw it, right? Here's why. When I was a kid, we never had HBO, and HBO was the only company that would put stuff on television where you could watch it close to its release date. In addition to that, when I was 14 years old, there was no way I was going to be able to see Footloose, right? And the reason why was I was an evangelical Christian. This whole movie was about the evils of evangelical Christians who didn't let young people dance, right? So my parents weren't going to smile on that. They weren't going to take me to that, right? And I couldn't drive myself when I was 14. So this came in a time where I'd have no way to see it, right? So what's interesting about that? What's interesting about me not seeing Footloose? Well, I had assumed I had seen it, and I had assumed that I understood what it was. And the reason why was it was so ubiquitously famous. I had seen so many clips from it, and I had seen so much discussion of Kevin Bacon, and I had seen so many of Kevin Bacon's films and so many of Sarah Jessica Parker's films that I assumed I had seen it and that I understood what it was. What's important about that? That is exactly what average Americans are doing with Dungeons and Dragons. They have never played it. They don't really actually know anything about it, but they've heard about it so many times. It's so ubiquitous. It ends up on their soda. It ends up in their theaters. It ends up in shoes that are next to the shoes they end up buying, but not the ones they buy. It ends up when they go to buy a board game, they see Dungeons and Dragons as a board game, and they're like, oh, there's the Waterdeep board game. Dungeons and Dragons is a board game. I thought it was some weird thing. And there are Dungeons and Dragons board games, and they continue to so it was really fascinating. My interaction with Footloose was that I assumed I had seen it. I assumed I understood what it was, but I didn't know. I had no idea what Footloose was. It was much better than I expected. It was a fantastic film, and I absolutely loved the film. But I realized I had never seen it, and I had this shockingly ignorant idea in my head of what it was, based on no real interaction with it. And that is the vast majorities of Americans That is exactly how they're interacting with Dungeons and Dragons today. They've never sat at a table with a dungeon master. They've never been a dragon master. They don't know its intellectual property complexity. They don't know everything that surrounds it, but they think they know what it is, right? So, and it was just interesting to be in that seat, right? To be in that, like, to me, oh, I know what Footloose is. I had no idea what Footloose was. I had never seen it. I just had a vague, ignorant conception of it, right? And that's what the vast majority of Americans have about Dungeons and Dragons. Kind of fascinating. By the way, if you haven't seen 1984 Footloose, get out there. 5 out of 5 stars and see this thing. It's sitting there right on Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, just talk to the possum who lives under your porch. He has Netflix, and he'll watch it with you. Everybody in the world has Netflix. Just go watch this thing. It is phenomenal. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments, send your traffic. Please consider like, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.